Welcome. This is the Calexit Congress. We're weekly meetings, cover new stuff about Calexit going on. And thank you all for being with us. Today we have Jason Wright, CEO, yes, California Calexit. Anthony. Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Good. Anthony's here.
Let me see what I can see here.
Rich is here. Rich, your device is not connected, but you know that. Hey, Anthony, you just get finished at the gym?
Yes, sir.
Nice. That's awesome. I love the gym. Uh, Today we're going to cover some regular news. We have other people coming in, but I wanted to go to Jason. We've been working on something for a little bit here called Cali Coin. Put that up there. Here's the Cali Coin update. And share screen. I don't know if we can see that. I pulled up a Word document. You should see two Calexit images. Can people see that?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay. So Jason, there we go. There's images of Cali Coin right there. Jason, what's going on?
So this image that we're looking at, these images are two images of one Calicoin NFT, physical NFT token. This is the very first one that has been made. The first series that we are doing is the friendship tokens, which will be given to allied movements, friendly movements, such as NHXit, Texit, the Hawaiian Independence Movement, Movimiento de Independencia de Baja California Sur. My apologies if I butchered that. Also, one I would like to bestow to the Yokai Opomo people, who we have, as an organization, been working closely with for some time. Basically, there will be 10 of these very rustic looking copper rounds with Calexit on them, and each one will be stamped with a number to identify it, 1 of 10, 2 of 10, so on and so forth, to 10 of 10. Once we've got these done, we will then start on the publicly available first series. That is going to be either 1,000 or 10,000, like this, less rustic and a little more refined. They will be sold instead of given, and anyone could buy them for a price that we've already determined. I'm not gonna go into the pricing just yet, just because I want to have these first 10 given out. Who's that? Their image is hidden.
Would you call this a currency, as it were, or?
It is a non-fungible token, so it is not currency. However, as we move up through the varying series, each series is going to be different metal being used to make it, and the hope is that at a certain point, when we have reestablished ourselves as our own independent California Republic, because, I mean, it's still the California Republic, as it says on our flag and everything. It's just that we're not independent anymore right now. So once we are independent, if we've made it up into the silver and gold series because it's that popular, hypothetically, right? Then the people and the government of California could potentially decide to use it as currency. And if they do, we would most likely let that happen because, you know, ultimately this is to help fund the movement. And so having it be used as currency is kind of like having your cake and your ice cream and some pie afterwards.
That's a pretty cool way to start. Because anything's going to come down to some kind of essential currency. Even because even bronze, or you said it was bronze, right? That it's made out of, has
The first ones are copper, but bronze is on the list of series.
yeah. Well, they have, I think, copper or bronze. Anything has some kind of intrinsic value based on the material. It's cool to see, though. I mean, it's pretty interesting, though. It relates a little bit to just in general gold-backed currency, though, wouldn't you say? Or how do you feel? Is it more to try and separate so California has a certain currency based on itself, something like that, starting from California only, so that we can legitimize ourselves as a state that way?
I will say yes and no. No, because what originally kicked it off was we thought about doing an NFT because they were starting to get popular, and we had talked about the idea, but we hadn't really come up with an idea of our own. And I threw it out there of let's do a physical NFT because at that point in time, there were no physical NFTs being made. So not only is this a physical NFT, and non-fungible token means that, you know, it can't be used as currency. That being said, the idea has always been that should we become our own independent republic again, and should the people and the government want it and decide to use it as currency, that we would really love that.
Interesting. It's pretty cool. I like it.
And as I said, you know, multiple series is based on the varying metals: Nordic gold, brass, bronze, the copper, silver, gold. We've even discussed that for super expensive metals like platinum, palladium, and the works, the platinum group metals, we could make that happen, but it's going to require a custom order, and we will more than likely custom make a Cali coin. So hypothetically here, if you had enough money that you wanted to pay for the amount of platinum that'll go into the coin, or Cali coin, the token, you basically pay for the metal, we procure it, we have it made, and we send it to you. And our thing, like, we're not looking for huge markup to make bazillions of dollars off this. You know, this isn't the next Bitcoin that's gonna spike high and then crash into nothing. This is a way for California independence supporters to, one, show that they've been involved and that they support it. Two, to have something physical that they can show off and show around rather than just talk about it. 3, to be able um, to buy something that provides a little bit of funding for the movement for things like the printing of literature, the filing of petition or initiative, stuff like that.
Okay.
And it further helps the movement along.
It's interesting, man. I'm not really sure where I'm sitting on the fence because I mean, even our discussions of Calexit, I mean, it brings about a lot of questions. Like, as far as a Federal Reserve currency, I mean, I think we can all see a kind of a downside to it, and even other countries that are moving to, a more gold-backed currency and things of this nature. I guess it does bring about some kind of I don't know how to even explain it. I want to say animosity towards just the American dollar and the way it's been used. You know, like placing debt on other countries in order to facilitate our own currency, and then watching them basically kind of give the finger to this administration by really just saying no. And I just found it kind of interesting to watch these kind of things play out, but it's harder for me to take it from a California standpoint and how I feel about our currency now, given other countries that really didn't have a problem just saying no, and I haven't really processed all that, but I was just kind of throwing it out there.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, and I would postulate that one of the key differences between CaliCoin, should it be accepted and turned into California currency, and the United States greenback, is that the United States government has gone around to allies and trading partners for quite some time and demanded of other countries that they use the American currency for this, that, the other, oil, right? And, understandably, people eventually get tired of being told what to do and how to do it, especially when they're the ones paying the most and watching this person, this bully on the playground, reap all the benefits. It's basically, turn out your pockets and give me everything you got. At a certain point, people are tired of it. So I would say the big difference would be that the California mentality is quite the opposite of let's go around the world and bully people and tell them what to do. It's more of a let's lead by example, because we know the vast majority of the world, both the economic first world leaders all the way down to people who, the Great Orange One would have called an S-hole country. People look to California for our leadership. They look to what does California have to say on this? What is California doing about this? And a lot of the times they just mirror what we're doing when they see that it's successful.
As arrogantly bold as that statement was, I don't doubt the truthfulness of it, because I think that California has just been very distinct for so many reasons that relate to being iconic. But I think when you start getting to a place of, oh my God, dare I say it, and I hate to be this guy, but when you get to a point of woke agendas and where that kind of leaves our youth in the separation of traditional, I don't want to be a laughing stock, but I think it's pretty easy also for other countries to kind of laugh at it. That's why you see a lot of memes that go around now that are based on the premise of being a clown planet, and I don't think at the end of the day anyone really wants that, but is that kind of thing unavoidable just because of the holes that we've dug and the answers that were never answered in due time? And I guess something about how serious is this predicament, you know? And that's a whole, I know it's a whole different question, but nevertheless, they are things I wonder about. I think California could definitely lead by example and be a front runner, and even its own, if we did exit and became, you know, had our own, you know, militia and whatnot, I think we could be an extremely powerful, almost like a mixture of a tribe and you know, just any other civilized army. But huh, still very interesting, I guess.
Well, and I can say without a doubt, having monitored economics both internationally, nationally, and also, you know, just for California, helping Marcus do a lot of the agricultural figures for California's economic output, and adjusting it for inflation, you know, crunching the numbers myself. I can say without a doubt the American dollar is tanking. I am going to be 37 in March, which is not old. And I remember a point in time where $10 for a movie ticket was absurd. That was outrageous. No one's going to pay that. Now, if you don't have $30 for a movie ticket, you ain't going to see the movie. When I graduated high school, and again, 18, so pretty much 18 years ago, it was $17 to $20 in Marin County, the wealthiest county in North America, for a movie ticket to go out with my then fiance and go see a movie. So, as much as the government likes to underweight the inflation statistics, inflation has got way far out of control, and it's not just recently.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, if I'm really going to think about it, I think it's a damn miracle that our money even still has value at this point, because is there, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I wish I knew all the details. I wish I was the stock market guy that could explain to you all the reasons why it's like there's no money even in there. It's like in a lot of these places, it almost seems like you think like if you watch that cryptocurrency place that just went down, it's like they could have just taken the money and given it to someone else and just told people that there's money in it, you know? But what's really there, it's like the bank. Like the bank is holding the money for like hundreds of thousands of Americans. But if everyone went and withdrew their money, dude, only like a couple hundred people would get their money back, you know? And I
just
think
like the Great Depression.
Yeah, I think, and it is pretty curious. I mean, you think of going on a 31, going on $32 trillion debt. It's like, you know, like I said, I wish I was that guy that could really wrap my head around how that's even possible. Because to me, it's like you have, like, I think of the whole entire United States, and there's just a little black hole right in the center that is $32 trillion of debt. And it's like, what is that? How do we live past that, you know? But somehow, when I look around, I mean, things seem okay. It's just there's something fishy about it, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, you know, the fact that a country that doesn't make $32 trillion in a year could allow itself to get to the point where it's $32 trillion in debt. Doesn't even make half of that or a quarter of that in 1 year. How they've let it get that far, you know, it just, from an economic business standpoint, it does not make sense. If a private company, does something like that and they have, like, you know, say 30 times their annual profits as debt, that company is going bankrupt. That company is not going to exist anymore. So, you know, and Bob Tomlin, you know, uh, I get what you're saying. In reality, though, gross over expenditure repeatedly, though it kind of boosts the stocks for the private individuals who are heavily invested while also legislating and deciding whether or not to send this money to these American companies to go make more bombs and guns. Um, Ultimately, the American people, the taxpayers, our money is going to that, and these corporate fat cats just get richer and richer. We're not getting more wealth. We are actually losing wealth because they are sending more and more and more for this war effort. That really, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. But really, in my personal opinion, the United States probably should have just stayed out of this whole Ukraine conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to currency, California, and funny enough, okay, yeah, Bob, yeah, it is a light band-aid on an arterial wound. You're bleeding out from the neck, and they give you one of those little, the little circle band-aid for like a pimple or something.
Look, I mean, there's a lot of simple complaints. Like, I'll just say it. It's like you look at homelessness in California or homelessness in general, and then you look at the amount of funding that goes to Ukraine. I feel like at this point, I mean, honestly, it's just to Ukraine over like the last 2 to 3 years, it's been like probably about $1 trillion. But I just see like if all this money, like a vacuum, was just being put into the put into the housing market, being put back into civilization, it just seems to me like as long as we have sustainability, that this should be pretty much a utopia. I mean, to the point of, I don't know why I can just see that, but I think that was the idea that we were supposed to have that got lost sight of or something, because funding a war that, I mean, I'm such a skeptic that when I think of the war in Ukraine, I'm like, is there really even a war? Or because it would not surprise me if this was just like they just go out into a field, blow some shit up, fucking film it from a fucking drone, and then send it to the American people and be like, there's a war and we're sending money there. But really, it's just government collusion taking it. That seriously, and that might be the most ignorant shiat anyone has ever said. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know what it is. Because I don't know. I haven't seen it really, so I don't know.
Well, and when people prove to be untrustworthy while they're running governments, and they prove to be heavily invested in these sorts of things, financially heavily invested, and they have proven that they are tricksters, well, I don't really blame anyone who thinks along those lines. Do I personally think along those lines? No. But I can see how you get to that, because we're all kind of tired of being lied to, tired of being used and abused, tired of being tricked, tired of having our needs not even appear on the list of things to do.
Well said. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, and I honestly, I literally sometimes I have to go back and watch certain things that remind me of why I got into this kind of thing in the first place. I mean, I never would have felt like this guy or seemed like it unless I didn't think of deeper questions like, why are things the way that they are? And so you go out and look, and you really do see some shit, and Man, I don't know. That's
Yeah, well, and so back to California independence. You had mentioned, what if we had our own militia? We don't need our own militia. We've already got our own army, our own navy. I believe we also have our own air force. When someone gets elected as the governor of California, they actually take two titles at the same time. One is governor of California. The other is commander in chief of California. So, as Californians, our commander in chief is not currently Joseph R. Biden. Our commander in chief is Mr. Gavin Newsom.
That's pretty interesting.
We have our own military. We have our own bank. There is a California banking system that is not the national American federal banking system. We have our own policies that, when Trump was in office, he pulled America out of the climate accord, the Paris Climate Accord, and they went and invited California. They were already having California and America both as guests. But when Trump made it clear he's got no interest, they said, okay, California, will you lead? Will you lead the world in figuring out how to handle this problem? That's pretty big.
Damn, man. Yeah,
And yes, it does need to be beefed up, but not to the point where America is at. Because California doesn't really go around the world making enemies faster than it can, do anything to make friends for. America has been making enemies out of its own friends recently, like Germany. California's economy just skipped up to number 4 in the world while being bled dry by America, mind you. We skipped up to number 4 in the world, and Germany got supplanted down to 5th. Well, a lot of that has to do with this whole Ukraine war and the fact that Joe Biden, when he took over the presidency, he basically pushed for them to make an agreement stating that they will impose sanctions and this and that, the other, basically puff up their chests. But, only, you can do the Nord Stream deal only if you will puff up your chests at Russia. But don't worry, because we're, in Germany worried because they're like, we can't afford that. If we puff up our chests and Russia says, fine, go find your heating oil somewhere else and your natural gas for your heating stuff somewhere else, then we will have millions of people who freeze to death. We can't afford that. And Biden made it clear that, well, it's more of a show of strength, really. We're not going to ask you to really do anything on it. We just want you to put this into that agreement. Things go on. Nord Stream 2 goes through. Germany says, okay, fine. We're doing what America said to do. Look what's happened recently. Everything with Nord Stream 2. The pipeline getting blown up, which, security experts around the world, there is very little doubt. There may be some doubt out there, but there's very little knowledgeable doubt about whether or not America was the one to do that. Most of the people in the know, who know enough to know, they put 2 and 2 together, and they're really good at that. That's why they get paid the big bucks. There are few in the world who don't think that America blew that pipeline up.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
America is also being brought into world court on charges, allegations from the European Union about war profiteering.
So I'm just curious, where do you find this information? Because I believe it. It's new to my ears, so I'm very curious.
Well, so Marcus is showing their Washington Post, very reputable source, right? The Washington Post, saying that there is no conclusive evidence that Russia blew up Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying as far as it's just another, no, I wouldn't say conspiracy, but basically. And I mean, I don't know. I guess I understand. I didn't know about the World Court order. I mean, the World Court either. But man, that makes a lot of sense. Even earlier, just when you were explaining, because you kind of forget that America, a little bit of America's background is a little bit of like subjugating, and definitely, putting themselves out there as a world police when, when Putin says something like, if we were to put nukes on the borders of Canada, wouldn't America feel like they wouldn't like it, but when we do it, it's fine. So it's kind of weird to think of like, we are that country, and then to look at the inside and see basically levels of rot or things like what you mentioned, where you probably do have inside jobs and I mean, I don't know what to call that. They're basically just, it's like, what, espionage but I mean,
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, espionage works. That is a fitting word for it. Conspiracy to commit espionage, because there's obviously more than one person involved in that, right? It's also conspiracy to commit espionage for personal gain. So, I mean, we could go down the whole rabbit hole of it, but ultimately, we don't need to. We just need to stop and realize this is what the United States government has become. And, the idea of the United States is not the problem. It's the government running it into the ground and turning it into the fascist war machine that we had fought so valiantly against in World War II. It's why Putin can actually, being Vladimir Putin, can still go out there and say, America, do I need to remind you that fascism is bad? You seem to need a reminder. Do we need to remind you that we were on the same side fighting against the evil Nazis? You seem to need the reminder. When you're doing so bad that Vladimir Putin can tell you that you're being bad, you know you're really messing up.
Oh my God. It's like, shouldn't be funny, but it is, Holy
well, and
shit.
the scary thing is, if they keep on the way they're keeping on, then pretty soon Kim Jong-un is going to be able to say something to that effect. And he's going to look good saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even just seeing the Chinese and the Russian, presidents that they still represent, communism, but seeing them kind of band together, just whatever. I mean, even as an American, I thought it was kind of funny to watch them, like, kind of, I can't even explain it. Like, you could tell they were just saying to a lot of American policy and to that subjugation, that it's saying shove it a little, they're not going to remain underneath your leash. And it's and it's an interesting point because it brings about, because we have our own problems as, California, as America, but then always having to consider that if we were to let our guard down too much or things like that, there could be other threats that are bigger than us, even though I don't think it'll ever get to a point of nuclear war. It's just something to think about as far as delegation or something like this.
Well, and, I really hope it doesn't get to nuclear war. I don't want World War III. World War III will more than likely be a nuclear war. I don't want that. But you kind of did hit on it earlier of, if Russia or China or North Korea had an ally in Canada and that Canadian ally wanted their nuclear weapons to protect themselves, well, it's the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, but we have a much different government than we had back then. Back then, the government was all about, toot your horn as loud as you can, just don't run anyone over with the train. Nowadays, Biden got like a lot of applause while on the presidential campaign trail because he started talking about taking Donald Trump, the current sitting president at the time, mind you, taking Donald Trump out back and fist fighting him and beating him up. By United States federal law, that was a felony. That was a federal offense, and Joe Biden should have been put away for that for a very long time. But because he is a senator and looking at being the president and people applauded him, it really only encouraged it. We've seen Trump threaten violence and talk about going and beating people. So either end of the political spectrum is not reasonable, is not rational, is not really the type that you want trying to negotiate down from war, because ultimately they want war. They want to fight. They are looking for a fight. They are the bully on the playground who's sizing everyone up, trying to figure out who they think that they can get away with roughing up. That's the status of the current American government. The previous administration, the current administration, the previous administration is more than likely coming back as the next administration. So, because, Biden's popularity gets as high as 32% nationally, and Trump's voter base starts at roughly 48% nationally. I wonder who's winning that.
I don't know.
It's a scary thought, but unless we do something that basically takes the wind out of the American war machine's sails, they are going to sail that ship. They are going to burn it. It will sink. It will be catastrophe for everyone on board. We don't want to be stuck on that. We need to go ahead and get our life raft and Calexit while we still can.
Yeah, I guess there was a part of me that was hoping literally from a federal level that would ever see some kind of like a glimmer of hope in it. But you can make a good point.
Well, and, as Californians, our glimmer of hope is that we have the legal right as guaranteed by the United States of America already. They already signed the paper. All we have to do is reach out and pluck that apple from the tree. We have the legal right to peacefully pursue self-determination. All we have to do is do it. And that's why, the Calicoin NFT, all of these meetings, why we restructured roughly 1 year ago, why people decided that I should be the new head, because I'd been working on special projects, been the head of international outreach for several years, the coordinator of the Bay Area, regional Bay Area, coordinator. Yeah, and the fact that I understand the laws around self-determination better than like 99 point something % of all humanity. I think the only people who understand the ins and outs of the laws on self-determination are people who work for the UN already.
Yeah, and I think out of that, I basically can hear that knowledge is power, and it's very clear to me that you've taken the time to observe many different aspects of pretty much everything. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Man. Manifest destiny.
Well, and America has never really wanted to make that right. But we at Yes California, Calexit LLC, the Calexit movement, right? We actually do want to start on the path of making that right. There's no way to wave a magic wand and undo it all. There are ways where we can start taking steps now to reincorporate people who have been ostracized from our society. If you look at the way most of the indigenous communities of California are treated within the larger communities that they're based in, or the way that they are ignored on certain issues, or the way that, I brought up the Yokayo Pomo, and some of the work that we've done with them is around the Tule elk, which is endemic to California. The only place in the world that the Tule elk exists is in California. By all rights, that should be our California national animal.
Wow.
The Yokayo Pomo people used to use it as a source of food. And when non-native folks showed up and started mining for gold and trying to claim all of California as theirs, they started killing off these elk in very large numbers. There are still Tule elk, miraculously. Still Tule elk in California. There was the Point Reyes National Seashore group herd of elk that, during the summer with the droughts and everything, they were at risk of dying from dehydration, even right there on the ocean. I mean, ocean salt water anyway. But rather than do the right and easy thing and send the excess elk from the herd up to Ukiah, up to the Yokayo Pomo, and make a very, very large gesture of, we who did not perpetrate the genocide feel god awful that it ever happened in the first place. Instead of making that gesture, they decided that they're just going to cull half of the herd. Just kill it off rather than give it to the people who've been asking for it, who used to use it long before white man ever showed up.
Yeah,
It's a very American way of doing things,
no,
not very Californian.
I understand. Also, this brings up a lot of things like getting to roots that have been almost plucked. You know, like I heard the phrase that, and just bear with me on this. You know, if like someone says, okay, so people are like black people are free, but perhaps they had been robbed of their culture. You could say the same with a lot like, you know, the tribe that you're talking about, and just what you have to sacrifice in order for Americans to make sense to the people that even liked it that way. But in a sense of spirituality, wow, was that not even close? If you really take this, just, you know, what we have compared to something that we obviously missed, you'd be pretty far off. You know, I mean, we're still going to feel the same, but it really is a completely separate world. So it's interesting that you would bring that up, and it really, to me, it almost, you know, I have to humble myself and get to a point of thinking of how much I wouldn't say taken for granted, but it's close to that. It's close to something like, you know, I don't know, like missing a spiritual aspect or something. But I forgot how we, like, I don't know how Calexit would precisely affect that directly, but I bring back that point, you know, as far as being robbed of the culture. I mean, I couldn't imagine how much different like this world would be with something as simple as a gold, like as a Calexit NFT, as far as, especially if it ever became, I mean, because even as it is, it has value in general, but um, just on a more fundamental level of why things have value in the first place. You know, I mean, like when you get even down to the metal aspect, you know, there's reasons for why any certain metal has a value, you know, and losing sight of that is for a bunch of monopoly money that can obviously be printed at any time and given to people that just use it to make more stuff for themselves while going, you guys thought we were going to help, but we're not. We're just criminals on the other side. You know, I mean, that's wasn't cool because, you know, I'm not the smartest guy. I'm really not, dude. I never fucking claim that. I try, but I don't expect to be, you know, the next Albert Einstein. But what I do know is just my own stupidity in this world. I managed to get 2 DUIs. I've been to jail a couple times, like just shit, you know? And then like when that happens and you realize what it feels like to have your hands cuffed behind your back, and literally it's like you get at that moment, it takes everything from you. It takes your, like, it takes a certain part of you never, like a certain part of me never left jail. That's where it's almost like I left a part there to gain strength from, you know, because I know that how could that be what it is, you know? And then but to see people that honestly, like, I just see them as criminals on the other side. It's like if you went as far as to weaponize the FBI, weaponize the DOJ, to try and surveil, and even like to the point of banning accounts and all this stuff. One, it's pretty obvious that there was something to hide or they had something to gain from doing it. But past that, what it really is just there. I mean, I expect that, like, you know, anyone is kind of dumb, but it's really just looking at criminals on the other side, and it's all about money and corruption. Because really, if you take a human soul and you honestly, even the most righteous dude on a bad day could be bribed. And so you could just do that. You could go to you and the FBI and be like, oh, you know what's up. But I mean, I'll give you 100,000 right now if, you know, you use your weapons to just silence anyone else that does it, you know. And this is levels of corruption. This is not what the Constitution or any of us, you know, we're meant to be dealing with in this freaking world. And I think If that doesn't turn some heads and piss some people off, at that point, I'd be surprised what wouldn't. I mean, if we hire politicians to do a certain job and they're getting their salary is 150,000, and yet somehow they're becoming millionaires through insider trading and all this shit that they do, it really just gets to a point of like, you couldn't even do the job. I mean, dude, people in the House of Representatives, most of the time you look, it's hard to get them to show up to work because we've become that complacent. The people that are running this country are the same people that you go to work and it's Tina that you're talking to. It's Jeff, like, and to watch just the amount of like, that's how weak and pathetic and complacent we've become, is that you can't even get our House representatives to get there on days when we need them to be there. Oh man, if it doesn't really get to certain levels of like, like what was everyone else looking at? Like, like you really got to put it on that level. And yeah, man, it's a slap in the face, but like, I can't say that I was really much any better. Like, I wouldn't have done any different, but once you watch it go wrong, then you could kind of look at it and be like, okay, we were fucking around. I mean, we're all doing it as people, but it's not, yeah, do we have to keep watching it? Does it have to keep going on that way? Or can we at least do the right thing? Because I expect amount of error, but let's see if we can narrow that down. Let's see if we can't find a little bit of hope in this goddamn void. I guess that's something about what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, well, that's literally what California independence movement is all about. We have the ability to make our own glimmer in the dark. All we need to do is realize that we naturally shine and that we can actually naturally provide a light in this dark, dark world that it has become. They're not just America's government. The governments all over the world have people in them who are doing nefarious things, self-serving things. I'm not going to put out specific examples, but I'm sure, if people start looking into each country by country and every single elected official, you will find, at the very, very least, you will find one person who is doing something horrible that's adversely affecting their own people, and more than likely also other people who aren't under their direct purview. And that just, it's like a sickness. It's like a disease. That greed, that self-centered, self-service kind of mindset, it takes root, and then it, spreads its seed, and it takes root in other places. And next thing you know, if we don't go through our garden and weed it out, we'll have nothing but weeds. No apple trees, no orchard of any kind, no carrots, no potatoes, no onion, no nothing. Not even flowers.
That's a cool way to put it.
And so ultimately, it's our time to shine. Trump is coming back. The Republicans just took back control of the other branches of the federal government. When they get the control of the executive branch again, I mean, they had a lot of things they wanted to do last time they had the control of the executive. They were kind of too inept and too busy, nipping at each other's necks to really get it done. Thank goodness. That's gonna be changed. I can guarantee you they are not going to waste the time. They are going to do the things that they want to do, and there will be nothing anyone in America who doesn't like it can say or do legally to stop it. Other than us, because we're actually the unlimited spending card that America relies on in order to promote war around the world 24/7. I believe the statistics out there somewhere that like the United States has known 7 years without war ever in its history. Something like that. It's absurd.
Yeah, this is well, a couple things. Next week when I come on, I'm gonna bring a friend who's he's got a little bit more depth than I do, if I'm gonna be honest, but I think he'd add to this quite a bit. But past that, I feel like what you're saying is the peaceful Calexit is like the peaceful version of
Awesome.
going down to Washington D.C. with and trying to strike up 100,000 Americans to come riot on the streets and that whole scenario. So
well,
cool.
you can think of it as all peaceful protest and no let's storm the Capitol and hang elected officials or something like that.
My head, I don't know. My head goes to that place sometimes. So it's it's pretty cool.
Yeah, ultimately, without California, America will have to renegotiate on its priorities. It's going to have to decide whether or not it wants the 400 or 500 people getting filthy rich off of war to continue getting filthy rich off of war while all of the rest of America dies, or do they like being in charge of things, in which case they're going to have to keep the rest of America alive, which means they won't have the money and the capacity for warfare around the world. If we go independent, we take a large chunk of the American GDP with us. We also take roughly 12% of the entire nation's populace.
Yeah.
Roughly 12% of all Americans are actually Californians.
No, I get. I mean, this would be the part where I wish we had an economist to. Economist. Thank you. To lay down that fabric and the exact amount of, to give it what it deserves, because I understand what you're saying, and I think that I don't have any doubt that it's not even just sustainable. That it's probably. I really feel like on the ground level, it's probably an excess, but yeah, I see what you mean. Restructuring, because man, California, I mean, it really is a very large piece of land, and as far as maximizing potential on just thinking about our state, that I feel like we would do extremely well for ourselves, so.
Oh yeah. We got the population of France, an economy that rivals Germany. The European Union has already made it clear to us, the leadership of Calexit, that should we go independent, we could legally join the European Union, and they would love to have us.
That's pretty badass.
Turns out there are countries that are nowhere near Europe that are part of the European Union. It's a union, it's not a continental based. And speaking of continent, did you know California is not on the same continent as America? California is on the Pacific continental plate, whereas most of the rest of America is on the North American continental plate. We are a Pacific people.
Did you have to trace that back to Pangea?
No. But it probably could be.
I'm curious because I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a fun little statistic America doesn't like because, it proves geographically, economically, sociologically, in every way that you might think of to classify between this person and that person, this type of person and that type of person. In every way, Californians, vastly different from America and Americans. Not that we hate them, it's just that we are different. And if they're going to bleed us dry and hate on us and use us and abuse us, and then take everything we have and use it for things that we don't even agree with anyway, I think that's all the more reason why we should get away from them, as far as the union and being sworn to, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, right?
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to California, todos Californios,
Nice.
to all of California and all of her people, no matter how subjugated they may or may not be, no matter how wealthy, no matter how poor, no matter how smart, no matter how much they were held down and held back in life through just economic disadvantage, which is a very real thing.
Hey, I'm sorry, my phone is going to cut out, but I'll get in contact with you guys soon.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Actually, I was going to say, Jason, let's wrap it up. 5
Yeah, I gotta
minutes,
go anyway.
So take us out, Jason. How do you want to? What do people need to know? Last 5 minutes of the show. What are the key messages? What are the key things they need to take? What should they look into? What do we need to be thinking about? What should we be looking forward to? CEO Jason Wright.
Well, we've covered it before. We can cover it again coming up soon. That we have more than enough means and ability. We have more than enough justification. We have more than enough legal right to go ahead and pursue our independence as a people of the Pacific. All we really have to do is come together as Californians and say, sí, se puede. We can do this. We have to acknowledge within ourselves that we can do this. And then the next step is to make it happen through legal and peaceful means only, which means pursuing things the way that Marcus and I and others in the Calexit Congress have put together over the years. We've tried the initiative process, got some good results. We're trying the, reach out to red states, get them to vote us off the island, which it seems like as long as those red states get the message and then actually follow through with it, that one could actually bear us fruit from the tree of independence a lot sooner than even the ultimate trump card, pardon the term, which is to approach the United Nations as a people and say, hey, we have been subjugated, we have been trodden on, we have been beaten down, used, and abused. We are our own people, and we seek the right to self-determination, an inalienable, fundamental human right, as the UN calls it. And again, the United Nations Entrance Charter is a treaty. In the United States of America, the rule of law dictates that first and foremost come treaties and trade deals, and then come the sacred founding documents of America, This trumps the Declaration of Independence. This trumps the Constitution that people say, oh, you can't do it. It's against the Constitution. It's nowhere in the Constitution, for starters. Also, under the rule of law, which literally just means how law works and what law trumps what, what levels of law are the highest, second highest, third highest. The way the United States has laid it out, not me, the way the United States of America has laid it out is that first and foremost come treaties and trade deals, which means first and foremost comes the United Nations Entrance Charter, which the United States of America has already signed. Them signing that gave us our agreement as Californians, as well as, gave Hawaiians and Puerto Ricans and Texans their right, and others. It gave them their right, their agreement of their right. America said, okay, we recognize that if you want it, you can take it and we can't stop you, not legally. So let's keep working at it. Let's make this happen before it's too late, because folks, I don't know how many times we need to predict the outcome of elections, national elections, years in advance, before people are going to finally realize that the people who are paid top dollar to call these things in as advanced of notice as possible, that's kind of a tongue twister. Those people are either lying or they are inept, because the writing has been on the wall. I'm not saying anything that people shouldn't already know. Everything I'm saying should be widely known and should be known about from a year or two ago. How many times do we have to predict a national election more than 1 year in advance before people are going to wake up and realize we have our pulse on the finger? We have our fingers on the pulse. We are monitoring it closely, and we always have been. Marcus literally wrote the book that started this movement, California's Next Century 2.0. He spelled it out then. The way that America's going, the way that California goes and is going, and the potential for California all on its own. We shouldn't have to continue to predict years in advance. So, folks, listen to me clearly when I tell you, I don't think Donald Trump is going to be back in the White House. I don't want Donald Trump back in the White House, but you know what? It's going to be great for Calexit because it will be the driving force. Last time he took control of the executive branch, we had literal millions of people in Los Angeles rallying, marching, protesting. Not my president. You're right. You're right. He was not our commander-in-chief. And we need to remember that. All we have to do is reach out and pluck that apple from the tree and enjoy it. Sink our teeth in and really taste how sweet that independence can be. After years of being starved, wouldn't it be nice to have some fresh fruit? Which, again, California produces more of than all of the rest of the United States put together. So, sí, se puede. We really can do this.
And we'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, Jason. Good show. Thank you for everybody who was commenting. posting comments. We'll always share them. Thank you, everybody who came out, and we will see you very soon. More episodes coming. And of course, every week we're doing something, and the climate's only getting better for us. Si se puede.
Sí. Viva
All right,
todos
I'll check you in a little bit, bro.
Californios.
Vivas
Mucho
todos
gusto.
Californios. Nice backdrop. You look good. You look good. Your audio and everything's coming in. All right, I'll see you in a little bit, bro. Oops.